Hello and welcome to this episode of Political Adda, our weekly program where we take up important political issues. We have an expert who gives their insight into that particular issue. Well, we saw what happened on Thursday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in West Bengal. He addressed a rally there and lashed out at the Mamata Banerjee led government. At the same time, we saw the response it evoked from the Chief Minister. Well, Modi versus Mamata on Operation Sindoor. How will it play out in battleground Bengal? That is a question that we have taken up for discussion today. We have with us senior journalist and political commentator Monideepa Banerjie joining us from Kolkata. We also have my colleague Sourav Barman. So let's begin today's episode. Welcome to ThePrint, ma'am.
Thank you. Good to be here.
We will be taking questions from our viewers also. Well, without much ado, let me start with yesterday's rally that was addressed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the response it got from Mamata Banerjee, and the imagery of Sindoor that was, quite the focus as far as both the Chief Minister and Prime Minister are concerned.
Oh, well, it was, we knew Mr. Modi was coming into North Bengal, which is, of course, the fort, as it were, of the BJP in West Bengal. Most of the seats that they have in assembly and in parliament are from the north of Bengal. And that's where the Prime Minister went to address what became clearly sort of a kickoff of the election, rundown in West Bengal. And nothing was out of line. I mean, nothing was unexpected in what he said, except perhaps the fact that he never once mentioned Mamata Banerjee's name. But I will tell you that that has been his, as it were, style ever since, if I recall correctly, Sandesh Khali. He never mentions Mamata Banerjee at all. Perhaps, bitten by that episode of 2021, the elections in which he sort of probably sank the party's chances in the assembly when he went on to, in a way, catcall the Chief Minister of West Bengal. So after that, Mr. Modi has apparently been a little careful while talking about Mamata Banerjee. The only references he made to her were indirect. It was Nirmamta. But he attacked her on every possible count that he could using the Operation Sindoor tool. And Mamata's reaction, if you ask me, was way over the top. The way she took him on, attacking him even on the personal front, an issue that just somehow didn't go with the Operation Sindoor context. Given the fact that we've just had an exchange with Pakistan, a military exchange with them, somehow the whole business of dragging Mr. Narendra Modi's spouse in seemed a little over-the-top reaction from Mamata Banerjee. Clearly, she wanted to match and outdo Mr. Modi in his first so-called election campaign rally in the state.
Ma'am, you spoke about how Mr. Modi did not even refer to Ms. Banerjee even once in his speech, while she did not just name him, but also dragged in his wife in her outburst. So how will that be received? That might galvanize the TMC rank and file, but how is that going to play out in the larger Bengali society? How will that be received by people?
That's an interesting point. I think the Bengali society, as it were, is pretty much polarized, not on religious grounds, but on, there is the urban folk, and then there is the hinterland, which has accrued enormous benefits from Mamata Banerjee's welfare policies. So that segment of voters, which is a huge majority, they look at Mamata Banerjee quite differently from how the suburban population is looking at her. And the suburban population also gets benefits from Mamata Banerjee's welfare programs, and so do people in urban areas. But there seems to be a little divide over here. So if you ask me, the urban voter in West Bengal would probably be completely shocked by the way Mamata Banerjee, brought in Mr. Modi's spouse. They would probably think it is completely inappropriate. Whereas on the ground, out in villages, they would probably not really react to it as negatively as the urban population would. I don't think anybody would, sort of applaud Ms. Banerjee's, reference to Mr. Modi's spouse in this context, in the context of Operation Sindoor, a war that has just finished, a near war-like situation that India has just come out.
So you think it was a spontaneous outburst of emotion, or you think there was some political calculation behind that on her part?
Some of it was definitely Mamata Banerjee's reaction. Some of them were certainly, well calculated, but some of it was a little spontaneous. I think her comment on the spouse was a measured kind of comment, not off the cuff for sure. I'm not sure what kind of constituency she was hoping to benefit from while referring to Mr. Modi's spouse. The other comments that she made, many of them, they were calculated, but there were also that, Mamata Banerjee, who after a 5-year, or actually since 2024, the elections, she suddenly seemed to have gone into election mode. Perhaps she has been nudged into election mode by Mr. Modi, and on certain points, she suddenly seemed to have overplayed her hand. I mean, it's okay to say, "Parde ke piche kya hai," out, at a rally somewhere, where the atmosphere just before an election is very, very different. But there she was sitting in her chief ministerial office premise, and she was saying these things, and some of it definitely, I think, jarred, in my view. But Mamata Banerjee is not one to let any grass grow under her feet. So, yeah, she came out all guns blazing.
Right. Ma'am, we've seen how, the BJP had put a lot of focus on West Bengal. It did give them certain response also in terms of the 2019 Lok Sabha elections. However, today the West Bengal BJP seems like a divided house. There are a number of issues that the party has been trying to sort of, sort out. But what is it that you think the party needs to do as far as the state unit is concerned in West Bengal?
Certainly a show of unity. That is something that is sorely missing in the West Bengal unit of the BJP, and that's been there forever. It's not anything new. The astonishing thing is that the BJP really hasn't bothered to fix the problem. The other issue that was very clear as daylight, glaringly so, was in 2021, when a whole bunch of leaders from Delhi flew down and started managing an election where the BJP was hoping to get 200 seats, but ended up with 77. I think this whole, parachuting of politicians from Delhi and all of the country, actually, into West Bengal at a time when Mamata Banerjee is shouting outsiders, that and the fact that, those people who were parachuted in didn't really get time to get a sense of Bengal and its people and what ticks with them. That really robbed the BJP of an opportunity for a better performance in 2021. I don't know if BJP is course correcting on that. I hear it is that they are trying to, they have sort of assigned leaders to BJP Bengal over a longer period of time, so that there is a sort of continuity and an understanding of Bengal when it comes to election day. But that is also something that I have noticed is a problem. And finally, there's the question of leadership. I mean, you have Shubhendu Adhikari, who, is going in one direction, Shukant Tumuk, the state chief, going in another, and never will the twain meet. Sometimes they do put up a show of unity, but it's so flimsy that nobody is quite fooled. And ultimately, Mamata Banerjee is a very, very, master politician and with a very strong grassroots network and a very keen understanding of the Bengali mindset. And that is something the BJP has a long way to go if it wants to compete.
Staying on the question of the state of Bengal BJP, if I take you back to yesterday's rally, Alipurduar rally, where certain calls were given out to carry out Operation Bengal along the lines of Operation Sindoor, which was also picked up by the CM. So, do you think that was also a miscalculation on the part of the Bengal BJP leaders?
I say yes. Again, I think if somebody had a sense of how people may react to equating Operation Sindoor to Operation Bengal, then the BJP perhaps would not have made that mistake. Mr. Shukanta Majumdar would not have erred. He was probably, he probably thought it was a good line. But in Bengal, I'm not sure that it is. Because somehow, as in the rest of the country, when it came to Operation Sindoor, there has been a remarkable unity of support about the way the whole situation was handled. But Operation Bengal, on that scale, to compare the two seemed a little frivolous, if you ask.
And Mamata has already accused, the PM of sort of, politicizing Operation Sindoor.
Yeah, that she has done. Though, of course, she very strongly pointed out yesterday that, that the opposition parties were not politicizing it the way Mr. Modi, she alleged, had been doing. Yeah, that's a very strong point that she had. And in that, perhaps Shukanta Majumdar erred.
Right. Ma'am, we have a question from our viewer. His name is Aditya. He wants to know if Mamata and Congress decide to fight assembly individually, the assembly elections individually, will it benefit the BJP as, he says, Muslim votes might get divided among Congress and Mamata? Or do you think Muslim voters are so devoted towards the TMC that such a division won't take place?
Well, given the state of the Congress, this whole business of uniting, or the whole business of, the Muslim vote getting shaved, a part of it, away towards the Congress, if the two parties, that is Trinamool and Congress, fight separately, that may have been a concern even as recently as 2021, maybe even 2024, maybe. But I remember that when Rahul Gandhi did his Bharat Jodo Yatra and he was doing the northeast to west leg, he passed through a bit of Murshidabad and a bit of Uttar Dinajpur or whatever. He came down from Assam and he spent some time in Bengal, and Adhir Chaudhary escorted him in this rally where he didn't really walk, but sat in front of a jeep and went. And I recall Mamata Banerjee was infuriated and she was very, very angry with Rahul Gandhi for coming to her state, without informing her, she said, and all that. But a lot of people in the Trinamool would concede that that's because Mamata Banerjee did worry about the fact that there is a possibility of the vote shifting, the Muslim vote, minority vote, splitting a little bit. I would say getting shaved out a little bit towards the Congress. But the polarization, however, I think at this point is almost complete. And the Congress is in such a sad and sorry state in the state that, I don't think anybody in the minority would shift their loyalty to the Congress anytime soon. The Congress is really in trouble in West Bengal, and there are no efforts being made to revive its fortune.
Ma'am, since you just mentioned Murshidabad, and of course there was violence in the wake of the protests against the Waqf bill, and I was traveling there, and during the course of my reporting, I also interviewed Adhir Chaudhary, and he very interestingly pointed out how this communal polarization is going to benefit only two parties. It's going to benefit the BJP and the TMC. Others are going to lose out. So how do you see that assessment?
I think Mr. Chaudhary is pretty spot on, which is why, I mean, the Congress also seems to have thrown in the towel. Logically speaking, and at one time it was so that the Congress managed to get about 40% votes in West Bengal, despite, despite the left's extremely strong presence. And the Congress sort of averaged about 30 to 40% votes in the left regime. And a lot of it was definitely because of the minority vote, which stayed with it. Murshidabad is is a strong example of that fact. It's a minority-dominated district. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary is pretty much the mascot of the district. He is a Hindu, and he has managed to win. He had managed to win Berhampur ever since 1999, I think. So, he had sort of, and the minority vote was with him. This time, we saw what happened. Yusuf Pathan comes in, and the minority vote shifts right away from Congress, right away from its loyalty to Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary for 15, 20 years, and goes after him. So definitely, Congress is probably the worst loser in this whole game of polarization that has happened in Bengal.
Right. Ma'am, you had mentioned Suvendu Adhikari. I really wanted to ask you that, there was a time that the BJP had sort of, pitted him against, or someone who could be pitted against Mamata Banerjee. How do you look at his performance as far as, the BJP is concerned?
Well, he can be noisy. He's there at every trouble spot, as it were, taking up the issue. He's there all over the place, but somehow there's a sense that he doesn't get the full support from the BJP to push his agenda through. He's there making all the noises, but finally his agenda doesn't get pushed through. I mean, look at the case of, say, Digha, where there was this, hoo-ha about the lookalike Jagannath temple that was inaugurated in April. I mean, he didn't go. He refused to go there, saying that he would not go to a temple that had been funded by the government. And he also got into a sort of argument with the chief secretary over the kind of invitation that had been sent. Nobody else from the BJP went, but Dilip Ghosh showed up. That was really like such an embarrassment for Shubhendu Adhikari. Why Dilip Ghosh went is not clear. He said the chief minister had invited him and all that, but that is the problem. And on other issues too, whenever other incidents have taken place and Shubhendu has rushed to address it, somehow in the follow through, either Shukanto Majumdar is saying something else, diverting the issue to something, other issue. Somehow there's a lack of follow through. And I think the same goes for Shukanto Majumdar as well, which raises enormous questions about what the BJP really wants out of Bengal. In fact, that shores up suspicion in many quarters, in many political quarters, of that good old term setting. Ultimately, somehow, BJP's leaders in Bengal, like Shubhendu, who had come in so strongly when he joined the BJP in 2020, somehow they are not able to really make a difference.
You just mentioned the Digha temple controversy. And so one line of criticism that Mamata Banerjee has drawn over the years, especially from the BJP, is the fact that she's really, the fact that she's pro-Muslim, and this appeasement charge, which has been labeled against her. So you think that was also the Digha temple, this grand construction, was also a way to address that criticism?
It was her way of trying to balance complaints about her so-called appeasement policy. Certainly, that was one of the issues. That was perhaps the main driving force. I mean, over the years, as every time somebody raises the issue of appeasement against Mamata Banerjee, she is at pains to underline things like, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Brahmin. And she has said all these things in the state assembly, which is very, very surprising. So she takes the business of trying to, keep the Hindu vote intact very, very seriously. Because, in math, like the minority vote is 30%. So she needs some more. She needs to ensure that her Hindu vote doesn't drift entirely towards the BJP. She needs the Hindu vote, and therefore she makes these very grand gestures of reciting the Chondi part, bringing up the fact that she's a Hindu every time it is necessary, and doing things like the Digha temple, which is the Jagannath Puri Jagannath look-alike. But I must say that even as that temple was getting off the ground and ready for inauguration, I know there are minority leaders, or at least one, who has said that now that you've built a temple, now you have to build a mosque as well. So it's one of those bottomless pits where you really there are no winners actually.
She also conducts a yearly Kali Puja at her home, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, that's been forever, and that's not uncommon. In Bengali homes, several Bengali homes, Kali Puja is held, and Mamata Banerjee just doesn't do Kali Puja. I mean, even in Durga Pujas, she is there everywhere. I mean, she has made the Durga Puja her own. Every Durga Puja, even before it has started, Mamata Banerjee is there, drawing the eyes of the goddess, reciting, mantras very fluently, and inaugurating Durga Puja pandal. So certainly, I mean, to offset this charge of appeasement, she works very hard to try and ensure that her Hindu majority voters are not completely disappointed.
What we witnessed on Thursday, the rally by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the response, it got from the West Bengal Chief Minister. Are we going to have a very sort of, shrill campaign as we, move towards the assembly elections in 2026?
You bet. You bet. I mean, we've really gotten off to a pretty much flying start, I would say. And it's only going to get hotter and shriller from now on. I mean, it'll be amazing to watch, and also amazing to see how BJP, which has now been bitten not once, not twice, but many times, how the BJP tackles Mamata Banerjee and West Bengal in 2026.
We've spoken about how the BJP needs to put its house in order, but how is the TMC placed right now? Are things hunky-dory in the TMC, or because we have seen how their MPs have actually fought in public in Delhi, the spat between Kalyan Banerjee and Mahua Moitra. So how are things in Bengal TMC? Are things looking up for them? Are they really in a place to contest polls tomorrow, as Mamata Banerjee said yesterday?
Yes, I mean, I don't think any other party in the state is as prepared as Trinamool Congress is at this moment. The Mahua Moitra and Kalyan Banerjee fracas, honestly, these are such ripples, on the surface of a fairly, tightly controlled, atmosphere. Have you heard a word about it after? Not a word. The only thing that could disturb the equilibrium, as it were, is tensions between Mamata Banerjee and Abhishek Banerjee, her nephew, and the National General Secretary of the party. They have been having a very rocky relationship over the last year. I think after 2024, especially over RG or the whole issue, Abhishek kept absolutely quiet. And now the teachers' issue too, Abhishek had been keeping mum on the issue. But now with his replacement of Yusuf Pathan as a delegation to the rest of the world for the Trinamool Congress on the issue of Operation Sindoor, what seems to have happened is the aunt and the nephew have made up. And if that is in order, if that's in place, the Trinamool is ready to go.
So, another issue that has been playing out on the streets of Bengal, especially Calcutta, is the termination of teachers in thousands. So, what are the political implications of that? How is the TMC going to address that problem? That seems to be mounting by the day.
I think that's a very important issue that is playing out on the streets of the city, even today as we speak, and that is Friday, the 30th of May. Even today, teachers are out on the streets. They had planned to conduct a half naked protest, but the police cracked down enormously. It was like amazing to see police all over the place in places like Shialda and Dharamtala, the city centers, and they were picking up teachers, women and men, and just putting them into police vans. It was a terrific police operation, but it's sure to leave a very bad taste in the mouth for many. Now, many people have wondered how Trinamool survives. Remember Sharda that happened in 2013. Then there was Narda in 2016, and yet Trinamool just managed to increase its margins and the number of votes. But this one is a little different, I mean, these teachers are there all over the state, and they are people in the neighborhood, and they are going through this kind of situation, some 26,000 of them, when they're out on the streets protesting, getting lathi charged. This could possibly be a very emotive election issue, which Mamata will have to handle very, very carefully. Otherwise, the master Moshai culture in Bengal, great respect for your teachers. If that is hurt, there could be a price to pay.
And also, the fact that we haven't discussed the left or the communists even once in this discussion so far is also an indication of the political, the marginalization of the communists in the state which they ruled for 34 years. So, how are they preparing for the elections now that we have less than a year left?
I don't think the left is even thinking of preparing for the elections just yet. They are really, I know a whole bunch of youngsters in the left front who have been very hopeful that they'll be able to make a difference. But somehow the voter has not responded to them as election candidates. They're very popular. They go around and they have a following. But when it comes to the vote, I guess at the end of the day, nobody wants to vote for somebody who is not going to be able to win. So they are not winning candidates by a long shot. And it'll be many years, I think, before that happens. They have their chances. They can, if they're a little more strategic in where they are fighting, who they are fielding, and it doesn't have to be assembly elections. Why don't they start with civic elections, panchayat elections? Maybe that's a better idea instead of trying to reach for the moon when you can barely sort of stand up on your own 2 feet. So they need to review their situation very, very strongly. It's been 15 years or 16 years since they have been on. It's not easy. They are trying, but they have a long way to go.
Well, thank you so much for your valuable time, ma'am, and for the insight that you shared. Thank you so much for joining in.